Over 600 million people in sub-Saharan Africa are at risk of living without electricity by 2030. Nearly 400 million are living under the shadows of fragility, violence, and conflict. At the spring meetings, the urgent need to bridge the gap of energy access in Africa is the primary focus.
Reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy is fundamental for reaching developmental goals and catalyzing economic transformation that could lift millions out of poverty. The World Bank Group, along with its partners, has launched innovative financial and technical strategies to hasten electrification rates.
600 million people in the continent do not have access to any power, zero. And to me, that's an unacceptable situation in the year 2024. Back in COP28, the World Bank made a commitment to connect 100 million Africans to affordable energy by 2030, so 6 years or so. What we are doing today is multiplying that commitment by bringing in all parts of the bank across all parts of Africa and really thinking how we can make this work. We're going to multiply that commitment to 250 million people out of that 600. Akin is already ready to go to 50, but Akin is a guy who dreams big. So his head is going beyond the 50, but he's starting with the 50. Just let's take that 50 for a minute. Let's keep us where we are today. 250, 50, yep. 300 million. If we can reach 300 out of 600 by 2030, that's great stuff.
On the other side, President Adesina passionately speaks about the intrinsic link between energy access and economic growth.
Three things IJ and I will agree to do. First is let's just solve Africa's energy problem.
Right.
And second is let's make sure Africa can feed itself. Of course, to do that, you also need energy to be able to power industries and value addition and all of that. And the third one is just to make sure that we create jobs. And you can't create jobs if you don't have energy running an economy. Look, energy is like blood inside of your body, right? You got blood, you live. Economies thrive on energy, right? There's a direct correlation between the GDP growth you're going to have with the amount of energy you are able to develop, to generate. Whether it's you're going to power your industries, you're going to make sure you're competitive. So no economy can grow in the dark. 25% increase, this is massive for Africa. We were able to do that. And what we did at African Development Bank is that we put in $8.9 billion into that. And that allowed us to have 22 million people connected to electricity. Okay. However, I'm sitting next to IJ, my friend, and I'm saying they're asking us to think big, bolder, and better. And so to be able to do that, I couldn't be asking for a better partnership than with IJ right here in the World Bank. So we decided that the biggest thing we can do is to do the solar systems in Africa. So we have this big thing, which is what I want to add to what IJ is saying, called Desert to Power. Desert to Power is our boldest effort to power Africa. It is a $20 billion investment that will generate 10,000 megawatts of power across 11 countries, the Sahelian zone of Africa.
Addressing the barriers to energy access requires concerted efforts from African leaders and international partners, and that's according to Ghana's Minister of Finance.
We have been pursuing a number of reforms to bring the energy sector to financial sustainability. For example, we have been implementing what we call the Energy Sector Recovery Program since 2019, which is intended to bring the sector to financial sustainability. There's a task force chaired by the Vice President, which is overseeing the implementation of the various reforms and the measures that we are implementing to strengthen the finances of the sector include IPP renegotiation. We are renegotiating some of the contracts we've signed with the independent power producers so that we can reduce the cost of generation.
Enhancing energy access is not just a governmental task. It requires collaboration between the government and the private sector. Now, to echo the voice of African private sector is the CEO of Ikeja Electric, sharing success stories about partnerships that have already made tremendous impact in Nigeria and across the continent.
The recent regulatory development in Nigeria, which involved the Electricity Act, amendments of the Constitution, and most recently the tariff review. Those are things that will definitely shape the future of power distribution in Nigeria. And what we will see over the next couple of months is it will follow certain trends like decentralization. We are going to see that there's going to be less reliance on the traditional grids that we have today. What you will begin to see is decentralized systems and embedded energy solutions and mini grids that we would use to support unserved and underserved communities in Nigeria today.
As these meetings continue, the World Bank gives Africa hope with its commitment to work alongside governments and partners to strengthen national and regional electrification programs with the goal of reaching universal access to electricity in the continent by 2030. Nkechi Nana, Arise News, Washington, D.C.